Tonight, when the sun goes down, you're gonna flip a switch. Light will flood the room, and you won't think twice about it. But somewhere in the back of your mind, something older than language still tenses up when the room goes black. You feel it in elevators. You feel it in empty parking lots. You feel it when you wake up at 3 a.m. and the house is too quiet. You tell yourself it's silly. It's not silly. It's ancient. For more than 100,000 years, the dark wasn't an inconvenience. It was a death sentence waiting to happen. Your ancestors didn't fear the dark because they were superstitious. They feared it because the ones who didn't fear it got eaten. Think about that for a second. Every person alive today is descended from someone who was afraid enough, cautious enough, jumpy enough to survive the night. The calm ones, the ones who wandered out past the fire without a second thought,
They simply stopped passing on their genes. Fear wasn't a flaw. It was a filter. Here's where it gets strange. Your eyes are actually terrible at night. Compared to a lion, a hyena, or a leopard, human night vision is almost pathetic. Researchers studying nocturnal predation have found that most big cats can see roughly 6 times better than you in low light. 6 times. That's not a small gap. That's the difference between spotting danger and becoming it. So somewhere around 2 million years ago, your ancestors made a trade. They gave up hunting at night. They gave up moving at night. Instead, they built something no other primate had figured out how to control: fire. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham has argued that the controlled use of fire didn't just change what early humans ate. It changed how they slept, how they socialized, and how long their evenings became. For the first time, there was a small circle of safety carved out of a world that wanted to kill you the moment the sun dropped. Everything outside that circle stayed exactly as dangerous as it had always been. This is the part that should sit with you for a second. The instinct to feel unsafe in the dark isn't a bug in your programming. It's a feature that kept your entire lineage alive long enough to invent light bulbs. Now, here's the twist most people never think about. It's not actually the darkness itself that your brain fears. It's what darkness takes away: information. Evolutionary anthropologist Charles Nunn has studied how sleep and vulnerability are linked across primate species, and one pattern shows up again and again. The animals that sleep in the most exposed, unpredictable environments tend to sleep lighter, wake more easily, and stay more alert to sound. Humans fit that pattern almost perfectly. Your ancestors didn't sleep like a house cat curled up in a sunbeam. They slept like a smoke detector. Half on, half off, always listening. That's why a creak in your house at night can snap you fully awake in under a second, but the exact same sound during the day barely registers. Your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's running software that is roughly 200,000 years old. Ask yourself, have you ever turned around in a dark hallway for no reason at all? Just a feeling that something was behind you? That feeling has a name in psychology. Some researchers call it hypervigilance. Others simply call it the orienting response, the reflex that turns your head toward uncertainty before your conscious mind even knows why. Sleep researcher Christian Kajochin has spent years studying how light and darkness directly shape human alertness and mood, not just our sleep cycles. His work shows that even brief exposure to darkness can measurably shift stress hormones and heart rate in ways most people never consciously notice. Your body reacts to the absence of light the same way it reacts to an unresolved threat: alert, waiting, unsure. Darkness doesn't just hide monsters. To your ancestors' brain, darkness itself was the monster, because it erased the one advantage humans have always relied on most: not strength, not speed, vision, and the information it provides. Now picture the earliest campfires, not as a cozy scene from a documentary, but as a survival technology. A ring of firelight wasn't just warmth. It was a boundary line between the world you could predict and the world you couldn't. Step past that line and every rustle in the grass became a potential predator. Every shape became a maybe. Some researchers believe this is where storytelling itself was born. Sitting close to the fire, unable to see far, early humans filled the darkness with words instead of light. Myths about spirits in the woods, warnings about wandering too far, stories that kept children near the flames until morning. In other words, fear of the dark may have quietly shaped some of the very first stories humans ever told each other. That thread never actually disappeared. It just changed shape. Think about your own childhood, the monster under the bed, the shape in the closet that definitely wasn't a coat 5 seconds ago. Nobody taught you to be afraid of an empty room. You arrived with that fear pre-installed, the same way every human child does, in every culture, on every continent, regardless of language or upbringing. That consistency is the giveaway. When a fear shows up everywhere, in every society, with no one teaching it directly, it usually isn't cultural. It's inherited. And it makes sense why it would be. A child who wandered off into true darkness 100,000 years ago wasn't being brave. They were gambling with a version of the world where the odds were almost never in their favor. So the fear stuck. Generation after generation, it stuck. Long after fire became easy. Long after houses had locks. Long after predators stopped waiting outside the door. Which brings us to right now. Tonight, in your very modern, very electrically lit life. You don't live anywhere near the dangers your ancestors faced. Statistically, the most dangerous thing in your house after dark is probably a stubbed toe. And yet the feeling persists. The small chill when a light goes out unexpectedly. The urge to check a dark room before walking into it. The relief, almost embarrassingly obvious, when you finally find a light switch. That relief is not weakness, it's inheritance. Every time you feel a flicker of unease in the dark, you're not overreacting to nothing. You're echoing an instinct that was tested generation after generation against real consequences, and it never once got fully switched off. Modern life gave you electricity, but it didn't give your nervous system an update. Underneath the light bulbs and the phone flashlights, there's still a very old, very effective alarm system quietly doing its job. So tonight, when you reach for a switch without even thinking about it, notice that motion for what it actually is. Not a habit. It's 100,000 years of survival, compressed into a single automatic gesture, still protecting a version of you that deep down never quite stopped being afraid of what the dark used to mean.